Welcome to the NASCAR Hall of Fame biography of Robert Glenn Jr. Johnson, one of the 5 members of the Hall's inaugural class. Jr. was a true pioneer, a bootlegger's son who drove from the back roads of North Carolina to Victory Lane. His story was told in the pages of Esquire magazine and on Hollywood's silver screen in a film appropriately titled The Last American Hero. And now Jr.'s story will be told by one of the stars of that film, actor Gary Busey.
Throughout the history of NASCAR, there is no bigger legend than the life of Junior Johnson. And though mixing fact and fiction is a slippery slope, the best thing about the legend of Junior Johnson is it's all true.
Big yellow caddy, well, I'll tell you if you ain't been told that when you hear my horn just as sure as you're born, well, I'll be coming down the middle of the road. You gotta have luck or a 10-ton truck if you shouldn't meet me down the line, 'cause I'm a real gone daddy in a big yellow caddy and 3/4 of the road is mine.
Grow your own food and stuff like that. You didn't have money to go out and buy anything much, and my family was very thought of as a rich family because my dad was a very good provider by knowing how to do a lot of things that other families didn't know how to do.
One thing Robert Glenn Johnson Sr. could do was make a legal corn whiskey, better known as moonshine.
My dad, he hauled whiskey till he got a little age on us. Then we started taking over the customers that he had, and it continued on. It had all to do about survival, basically. This particular area was very isolated away from big towns and stuff like that, so, and it was the ideal place that you had a lot of covered streams and stuff and to, you know, make moonshine.
Making moonshine was risky business, but the Johnson family made the best moonshine in the state, and that made for good business, something Junior learned early on from his father.
He'd bake the whiskey, and me and my brothers would haul the whiskey. So if you make it, you got to sell it for wholesale and to somebody to retail. And if you got both ends of that, you make a lot more money.
Once his legs were long enough to reach the pedals, Junior Johnson learned to drive a car by running moonshine on the back roads of Wilkes County. Be going down the road the route running somebody, and that's where the 180's turnaround came in, because if you didn't learn the 180 before you could spin that thing around in the road and go back and meet whoever was chasing, and you had to outnerve him, most times just go straight towards him and he'd give up. There's a lot of pride in who makes the best whiskey and who's got the best liquor card and stuff like that, you know.
I was there playing corn. My brother came down. He had a pretty fast car. He was hauling whiskey about every night. They decided to run a bootlegging race, have a bootleggers race up there. My brother entered it, wanted me to drive his car. I went up there and drove it, and I finished second in the thing. That was where I first ever drove a race car on a racetrack.
It wouldn't be the last time Junior Johnson found himself behind the wheel of a race car. By the early 1950s, there was a new sport emerging down south, NASCAR. Men were actually getting paid to race stock cars.
To a young Junior Johnson, that sounded like a pretty good deal.
I started messing with the racing just a little bit, you know, driving cars for people on the amateur stuff like that. And it just kept growing and growing.
Darlington, 1953. For a country boy used to racing back roads and dirt tracks, Junior Johnson's first NASCAR race was bigger than life.
You just couldn't imagine that you could get around that thing as fast as you could, because you got about that much to spare, you're going to be knocking that wall down, you know. I turned my car over and it caught a fire, and I had to put it out. I pulled my T-shirt off and put the fire out. I smothered it out over the carburetor. I left there without a T-shirt.
After a handful of races scattered over the next 2 seasons, Junior's career finally turned the corner in 1955. He won 5 races, driving a number 55 Oldsmobile. The legend of the Wilkes County Wild Man was born.
Everybody knew that Junior started off as a bootlegger. He'd haul his liquor during the week and race his car on the weekends.
Now, every time he raced, Junior was the car to beat. Despite his success on the track, Junior kept on running moonshine.
Well, to tell you the honest God truth, I can make more money. Moonshine was twice the money what I could make running NASCAR.
Occasionally in Wilkes County and our surrounding counties, they'd bring a bunch of revenuers in and just clean the county out. They'd cut every steal, find every steal.
Back in the 50s, we used to use dynamite exclusively. First time I ever heard of Junior Johnson was in about 1956, when I went to Rockingham, North Carolina, and the guy in charge of the post of duty, he was sitting out waiting for Junior to bring a load of liquor in to the racetrack. He was sitting out with a Seas Mercury waiting for Junior to come by. And I caught him in 100 years driving those old cars we had. Only if he ran out of gas or threw a rod, maybe.
Moonshine hauling was more exciting than racing.
You just knowed if you got caught, you was going to jail.
I had run a race up in Oxford, Pennsylvania, I believe it was. And I drove all night to get home the next morning. And when I came in and went in the house, my dad hollered at me before I went to bed, asked me if I'd go in and fire a steel up for him. I went in and fired the steel up and had it going real good. And they had 18 officers surrounding the place. They said, well, Junior's gonna leave and, you know, we need to get him right now. It was close enough to my dad's house, so they called me and they indicted him, and me and him both went to prison over it.
Junior's sentence was 2 years federal prison in Chillicothe, Ohio. He would serve 11 months and 3 days.
I would have got out in a third of my time, but I found out that the harvest time was coming on into prison. They saved me $3 more to do their work for them before they let me out. I didn't appreciate that very much.
With his bootlegging days behind him, Junior Johnson focused on driving a race car.
And I, decided just to get plumb out of it and go on and race NASCAR.
Junior's rough and rowdy past made him a folk hero to the locals, and it was his outlaw reputation that appealed to them.
If you wasn't scared to haul whiskey, you was thought of as Jesse James or whatever, you know.
That was what a lot of people liked about Junior, because he had a story behind him. He could drive a moonshine car and he could drive a race car too.
There weren't many who drove a race car any faster than Junior Johnson. In 1960, Junior was about to turn the key on the biggest race of his career.
Ray Fox was building the car, and he was as good as anybody out there. So I thought it was a great thing to get to drive for him, so I took off to Daytona Beach.
The new Daytona Superspeedway was known for high banks and high speeds. Without factory backing, Junior drove a rebuilt Chevy.
The Pontiacs was backed by the factory. We was out there with 348 cubic inch truck motors, really what it had in it. They built that car in about 10 days. I was almost ready to come home because my car was so slow I didn't have a chance of nothing.
But in practice, Junior discovered something that would change NASCAR racing forever: the draft.
I went out to practice one time and caught knowing by seeing him in my mirror. I seen him coming up behind me, and he had one of the fastest Pontiacs there. And when he went by, I immediately ducked him behind me. Sure enough, going down the back stretch, I could hold on to him and he couldn't get away from me or nothing. You know, I might be all right if I can stay here and do that all day long. So I chose to stay. And when they started that race, I got drafted any and everybody that I could.
Junior and his rebuilt Chevy weren't the fastest car that day. They didn't have to be. Junior figured out how to make the air around the other cars pull him along. It was physics raised to an art, and it was known as drafting.
About 30 laps to go, I was leading the race.
Bobby Johns was his closest competitor, and John's misfortune became Junior's good luck.
He spun out, and his back glass flew out of his car. When that happened, before he could get back on the racetrack and get going, and I had enough distance till I went on and won the race.
And it's Junior Johnson, the winner by 23 seconds over Bobby Johns, who was second.
Junior would later say his car drafted like Jack the Bear. He outsmarted the field and in the process changed stock car racing forever.
It was just absolutely a miracle that that car won that race.
The 1960 Daytona 500 would be the biggest win of Junior Johnson's career as a driver. With Ray Fox turning the wrenches and Junior Johnson turning the wheel, the Daytona 500 winning tandem were tough to beat.
Junior was a kind of driver that he wanted to run up front as much as he possibly could. He wouldn't lay back. He wouldn't wait on anybody. He ran every lap just as hard as he could run it.
Some, like Junior Johnson, say almost nothing, but they'll race anybody till the wheels fall off.
He was short with his words. You know, you might say, oh, Junior, listen to him. He sounds a little bit country. Maybe he's a farmer. He's this. Let me tell you what, that is a brilliant man.
Well, I think I'll wait and see what speeds is going to be and how the tire wear is going to be and try to finish it. Because I think if you go out right at the start as cold as it's been here, no more chance we got to spread rubber down on the racetrack, you might have a lot of tire wear.
He did a lot of things that people don't realize that he did. I mean, mechanically. He was an innovator.
Maybe Junior's most celebrated innovation was a car that became a NASCAR icon, his infamous number 3 Chevy.
Believe it or not, Chevrolet did not have a thing to do with that car. They told me, you can't make that car run with them boys. Everybody said you can't make a Chevrolet run.
One thing that has helped our sport over the years is the fact that there is a lot of brand loyalty among the fans. And there's brand loyalty as far as the drivers, and certainly Ford and Chevrolet, the two top manufacturers in the United States. They wanted to beat each other, no doubt about that.
That's according up to the Ford guys. If they want to run, we'll run. If they want to stroke, we'll all stroke.
Ford and them fought that thing the rest of the year, and they never did outrun it.
The 3-car was dominant, and people wanted to see Junior run it. When he entered a race, it was as if the crowd itself gained horsepower.
I'm a little boy listening listening on my transistor radio in Owensboro, Kentucky. Now, I'd finally find a station, and I'd be listening to this radio, and Junior Johnson in his Chevrolet is leading the race.
It's Johnson barreling into the backstretch at better than 140 miles per hour.
Everybody's finally figured out the big advantage Junior Johnson has is he has a 427 Chevrolet mystery engine. Wow, a mystery engine? Has anybody else got a mystery engine?
NASCAR officials tried to declare the mystery motor illegal, but it passed every inspection.
It'd have to blow up or something for them to win the race.
Meanwhile, the Chevy engine, which wasn't supposed to last, has Johnson still in front.
If it was a 400-mile race, he might be able to keep it together long enough to win. If it was a 500-mile race, you could bet in that last 100 miles, that mystery engine would come flying apart.
The crowd jumps up. There's smoke trailing Johnson's car, and there were only 4 miles to go.
The three-car personified Junior's go or blow mentality. Of the 33 races he ran in 1963, he celebrated 7 wins and posted 21 DNFs.
That car was a part of the innovations that went into a lot of the stuff that I built.
A guy in a Chevrolet, which nobody else had a fast Chevrolet, and they got a mystery engine, and his name is Junior Johnson, and he's a former moonshiner. Those are all kinds of fascinating things that would make any, a kid my age, and made him an instant hero to me.
Junior's appeal was always his down-to-earth approach to life. The South was his home, and Junior always remained grounded to his birthplace.
This is a place I like to come to kind of get away from it all, the hassle and stuff around the racetrack, and the tension and stuff's so strong, so you got to have somewhere that's kind of sort of relax and get away from it all, and this is the best place I know.
Everything that I've heard, from the cabin here to your philosophy on racing, it all goes back to keeping it basic, keeping it simple, and that seems to be the way Junior Johnson likes his life.
That's true. I'm not one for the fancy, limelight of everything that's going. I just like the simple things in life, and when you speak of the cabin, there ain't nothing no simpler, and I ain't nothing I like no better.
When I was driving, I was kind of attracted to people that they want to race. If they want to race hard, win or lose.
1965 would be a career year for Junior Johnson. Aided by crew chief Herb Nabb, he set a blistering pace for the rest of the field.
I think I was fearless. I could beat anybody.
That year, Junior beat all comers. In 36 races, he posted 13 wins. At age 34, Junior Johnson was at the peak of his career as a driver. But ever since his first NASCAR race, there was still one track Junior hadn't conquered: Darlington.
You're sitting in the second row there. Can you try for it right into that first turn? I probably won't run for it for 4 or 5 laps, let my tires get hot and the engine get it warmed up and everything, and then I'll probably be charging for the lead.
Junior Johnson in second position right now has never won here at Darlington, and he'd sure like to. He's from Rondon, North Carolina, not too far away. Big, burly Junior Johnson, the chicken farmer. And there goes Junior. He's got the lead. Junior Johnson on the first turn of the second lap has taken the lead.
Other wins were bigger, but this one may have been the most satisfying.
Junior Johnson has won the Rebel 300 at Darlington, South Carolina, and now he drives his car into victory lane.
Junior was a long way around today, but you led it almost every inch of the way. I didn't have no idea. All I knew, I was going after him as long as I could see. Okay, it's a great victory. Congratulations to you, Junior Johnson. Thank you.
Well, the toughing it out is over for today. Only the picking up remains. Picking up trophies and kisses. And oh yes, a check for more than $10,000 for Junior Johnson.
The Roadrunner from Rhonda was quickly becoming one of NASCAR's biggest celebrities. That same year, the tale of Junior Johnson grew even bigger. He got the attention of Esquire magazine, And they sent down a young writer from New York named Tom Wolfe to get the story.
When he first came, he came right in the middle of the summer. He had about 110 proof, and he had on a wool suit. And everybody laughed at him, and they thought he was the biggest clown that they ever seen in their life. I just told him right to his face, I said, you got to go out in the country and ask about Junior Johnson and get your story yourself. I'm not going to give it to you. That's how he come about calling me the last American hero.
The nickname stuck, and in 1973, Wolfe's article was adapted into a feature film.
I was proud of the movie. The two people that I really think the two of the best stars on the thing was Geraldine Fitzgerald and the guy that played my dad. They was authentic.
Just see to it you boys take care of your ma.
Junior was played by a young actor starring in one of his first leading roles, Jeff Bridges. It was also one of my first Hollywood roles. I co-starred with Jeff as his fiery brother, Wayne.
Don't hit the car, man.
Well, you go get the lawyer, and you go get the lawyer.
Look, stars cost money, Hackle, big money. You better get that through your head.
You're going to be a star?
You watch me at Hickory.
Jeff was fine. He did a good job. He was a funny, classic person. And it proves it, you know, by his latest Oscar that he won.
NASCAR's greatest. North Wilkesboro would always be Junior's home track. It was the first place he ever drove a race car, and it was still his favorite.
We'd rather win here at our hometown than anywhere else because I hate to be run home and then whooped in my own backyard. This place we like to win a little bit over any other place we run.
Junior never ran enough races in one year to compete for a season title. When he retired with 50 career victories, he was the winningest driver never to win a championship.
This is what the home folks came to see. Old Junior out front and still charging.
That win in North Wilkesboro would be the last time Junior, the driver, ever set foot in victory lane. By the mid-60s, race cars were being pushed to their limits and beyond. For too many, driver safety took a back seat to driving with the devil.
People say, well, when you wreck, you screw yourself to death. It happens so fast and stuff, and you're trying to save the car, and you get a little bit scared afterwards, but not while you're wrecking.
Well, certainly the mid-60s was a bad time for the sport because we lost Joe Weatherly, Jimmy Perdue, Billy Wade.
In a 13-month span, 4 NASCAR drivers lost their lives. One of them was Glenn Fireball Roberts at the 1964 World 600.
Me and Ned got tangled up coming off the second turn. We spun out down the backstretch, and Fireball come along trying to dodge us and spun out himself and hit the wall and turned over and busted his gas tank. And that gas, busted into flame.
The death of Fireball Roberts shook the NASCAR world. And though it eventually led to better safety standards, it also had a big impact on both Junior and Ned Jarrett.
And so I think that's the reason that we retired.
And we realized that we could be the one at his place. We both walked away from it.
With his driving days in the rearview mirror, Junior turned his attention to owning a race team.
hooked with the factories where I could depend on parts and pieces and knowledge. And that was a big, big factor of me being able to do stuff by myself.
Tucked away in the mountains of Ingle Hollow, North Carolina, Junior built the engines that would power the next chapter of his life. After a carousel of talented drivers, he settled on Leroy Yarborough.
He did not fear anything. Nobody had as much nerve as he had.
When Junior and Leroy clicked during the 1969 season, they knew they had found something special. In 28 races, they won 7 and became the first team to win NASCAR's version of the Triple Crown. The Daytona 500, the World 600, and the Southern 500.
As far as for driving a car and being fearless, he was the greatest race driver I ever seen.
After Leroy's career was cut short by illness, Junior started the search for another driver. At the same time, NASCAR had troubles of its own with the departure of Detroit manufacturers.
Junior was good at getting sponsorship. It didn't matter who you were, whether you were somebody off the street or a CEO, it didn't make any difference. Everybody liked Junior Johnson.
I don't think Junior's ever approached anybody. I think people approach Junior. If you wanted to sponsor a race car, let's go where the best is. And Junior Johnson seems like the best place.
Win or lose, they contacted me, factories and sponsors and everybody.
To see Junior going into a corporate office in Winston-Salem, you kind of make you wonder, but I bet he held his own.
I got a meeting with RJR going after him for a sponsor. When I went in and sat down with them, I told them I needed $800,000. And they started laughing at me. They said, Lord have mercy, we got $570 million in advertisement budget, and you're asking for $800,000. First thing hit my mind, well, if they got all that money, they need to sponsor the whole circuit.
The Winston Cup sponsorship helped rescue NASCAR, but Junior Johnson still needed a sponsor and a driver. He soon found both.
I just found another sponsor and went on down the road. And it happened to be Busch Beer. And I took Cale on.
I ran the Indy cars for 2 years, and when that contract was up, I came back and Junior Johnson was looking for a driver and I was looking for a ride, and that's the best thing ever happened to me.
Cale Yarborough was a former semi-pro football player from South Carolina. His tough, gritty style was exactly what Junior wanted from a driver.
He didn't take off right quick. You know, he had to run stock cars for a while. I think he wrecked and tore up the cars about 6, 7, 8, 10 times in his first goings out. My guys, they said, fire him because he ain't gonna never change. And I said, yeah, he is too, because he'll figure out after a while his head's gonna get skinned if he keeps breaking them cars. And sure enough, he did. He settled down and he made a great, great race driver for us.
Junior was the kind of driver that I wanted to be. So it was easy for me to step in there and with the equipment that he gave me and run it just like he wanted to run.
He was going to run it wide open all day long, and you had to come with something that stay under him all day long. He was determined he was going to win every race.
NASCAR in the 1970s was the golden age. It was the stage where Cale and Junior raced door to door against many of the sport's greatest drivers.
I wanted to win races, and Junior wanted to win races, and we wanted to win championships. I just think it was a perfect match.
The first championship that we won, neither one of us was running for the championship. We just run to win.
In the number 11 Holly Farms car, dubbed Old Yeller, Junior won his his first championship after almost a quarter century in NASCAR. 1976 would mark the first of 3 straight championship seasons for Junior and Cale.
All 3 of them were good, but winning that first one and getting that behind you was probably the best one for me.
But he also had good equipment. Junior Johnson, when Cale won those 3 championships in a row, I mean, he was building almost bulletproof cars back then.
Junior had built that engine. He knew how many laps we were going to run in practice about. He knew about what the length of that race was. Durability was a big, big thing, at Junior Johnson's. We're one of the very few teams that even when we used to lose an engine, we changed an engine when NASCAR would allow us to do it. And Cale wound up, not having any DNS because of it.
Junior Johnson, Yarborough's mechanic, wields a sledge, fighting the clock to get his driver back into the race.
Anybody else could do it, he could do it too. And if he had to, he would get in there and work just like anybody else.
Whenever one of the guys would fall out and didn't show up to do his job and that kind of stuff, I'd step in and do his job till he got well and got back. And I wound up going all through every bit of stuff like a jack man, carrying the tires, changing tires and all that stuff, because Glenn Wood and us was about the only one that would break the 22nd bracket. We was at Talladega, and there's one of the inspectors that was always in my way. When I'd come out underneath the car, I didn't ever pick a jack up. I just swung the jacket in the air, and I kept telling him, you in my way. He smarted off to me, you do your job, I'll do mine. About 2 or 3 more times, I didn't stop. I just clipped his hind end, throwed him out through the pit road. Instead of them getting out of the way or staying away from my way of coming around the jack, they just outlawed me because I was the only one that could bring the jack around like that. They just classed me being as an illegal jacker. We came up with a lot of things that if nobody else had it, they either made it legal or made it illegal for us.
After 8 seasons and 55 wins together, Junior and Cale parted ways at the end of the 1980 season.
There's no telling how many championships that Junior and I might have won if I hadn't decided to cut my schedule back.
Why is it so difficult for a new name to appear in a winner's circle in this kind of racing?
I think the biggest thing, Chris, is that it takes a tremendous amount of money and also a tremendous amount of experience.
Well, Darrell wasn't no question he's going to be a great race driver. When I lost Cale, I knew that he was the next up-and-comer. He'd talk junk about Cale. Cale would talk junk about him.
Yeah, I named him Jaws. He could talk.
You got any comment? Ain't you got anything to say?
You don't have to get bossy.
Yankees are all alike.
You don't have to get bossy.
Never know what to say. Back to the tower.
Cale and I, big rivals. I mean, he called me Jaws. You would assume that, one rival is not going to help the other one, but in 1980, when Cale was going to leave juniors and go drive for MC Anderson, Cale came to me early in the year and he said, I'm going to give you the best advice anybody's ever given you. I'm leaving juniors at the end of the year. I don't even know if anybody else knew it or not.
That's something I decided to do on my own. I didn't talk to Junior about who replaced me with. I knew Darrell had a lot of talent, and he could do the job at Junior Johnson.
They had just come off a season where I think they won 6 races and 10 or 12 poles. And I walked out and said, let me tell y'all what y'all did wrong this year. I said, y'all won 6 races and 12 poles. I'm going to win 12 races and 6 poles. I said, y'all got your emphasis all in the wrong place. Well, now they were a championship winning team. They'd never been used to being talked to like that.
It was I think, a summary of The Odd Couple, Love, Hate, you name it. It was a mixture of all the above. Because of the friction between Cale and Darrell, it was almost like just brought the fox into the hen house. We didn't like this guy.
Well, I think Darrell had the capability. He could see the benefit of him coming to us where we was going to win a lot of races.
It was a new start for an old-school owner who held age-old superstitions.
I had a green t-shirt on, and I wander into Junior's pits. He literally comes over, picks me up, carries me out of his pits and says, "Boy, are you out of your mind? Nobody wears green in this sport. Take that damn shirt off and stand there." So I took my shirt off and gave it to him. He takes over, goes over, throws it in the trash can. Now I'm standing in his pits without a shirt on. I think it was 2 years later, he went to Mountain Dew. His car was green. So this meant you couldn't have green unless there was enough money on the other side of the green for him.
To be with Junior Johnson and to have a new sponsor, it's like a rebirth for me. And I'm just looking forward to 1981. I think it's going to be the best year I ever had, and it's fun to be with people that enjoy racing. I didn't want to disappoint Junior. I felt like he took a chance, not a big chance in my mind, but maybe in his, of hiring me because I was controversial.
What he did was his business, but what he did racing the car attracted me to him, and I thought I could give him a better car. I'd have a better race team, and that played out to be true.
But his favorite thing to do when I first started driving for him, he'd say, "Cale, pit next time." I'd come on, I'd say, "My name ain't Cale." He said, 10-4, pit next time, Cale.
We got along fine after, a race or two. Darrell knew what he had to do, and he knew he had the best car on the racetrack, and he took it and proved it.
That year, Junior won the first of 3 season titles with Darrell Waltrip at the wheel. As an owner, Junior won 6 Cup championships in a 10-year span.
Come here, Junior. You're going to get a hug with you, boy.
Junior always loved being first in whatever he did. Following the 1981 season, he was NASCAR's first car owner, honored at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City.
And pick up a little bit where Darrell said a while ago, drinking and smoking got us here. I've been accused of making that stuff y'all been drinking. I really didn't make it. I hauled it. That's how I found out about how to work on these cars.
Junior added a new sponsor in Budweiser and a second driver in Neil Bonnet in 1984.
Good run, buddy.
He would always challenge you when we had 2 teams, 11 and 12, Double Thunder. They were on one side of the creek, we were on the other side of the creek. He'd come in the 11 shop and say, and boys down there on that 12 car said, "They're going to kick y'all's butt this weekend." And we said, "Well, I don't think so." He'd go back down the hill, go to the 12, and his boys up there on that 11 car said, "They're going to kick y'all's butt this weekend." So he didn't want us to work together.
Darrell complained about the motors one time, and I just took Neil's motor out and put it in Darrell's car. And lo and behold, Darrell run slower with it than he did the one he had.
He wanted us to really just work not against each other, but for each team to raise the other one up. That was his theory, and worked most of the time.
Junior was a mechanical genius who lived by the notion that to build something great, you had to think outside of the box.
Junior was an innovator, and he would take the rule book and he would find out all the things that said you couldn't do, and then he'd figure out all the things that you could do. We knew we had the best car, we knew we had the best owner, we had the best sponsor. Those 6 years I drove for Junior defined my career. The wins, the championships, and he's had great drivers. So when it questioned about who was the best, I know in the back of his mind he wants to say me. I know he'd say me every time, but he don't want to make Cale mad. So I'm okay with that.
He proved our side of it, and he decided he was the best driver at a given time, and he might very well could have been the best driver that's ever drove a race car.
In 1985, Ronald Reagan's presidential pardon finally put Junior Johnson's bootlegger past to rest.
It just happened to come under Ronald Reagan, but it was started under Jimmy Carter.
He was tough. He was a tough man. He was like a pit bull. He latched on to something. He wouldn't let go of it until he conquered it. And when he finally feels like he's conquered it or figured it out, he gets bored with it and he wants to move on to something else.
Having no more worlds to conquer, Junior sold his shop and called it quits. after 5 decades in NASCAR.
It was not an instant decision. I was getting tired. NASCAR was hammering on me hard because I was trying to innovate different things to win races with. And it's finding me like $100,000 for almost nothing. I'll just get out of it. And that's what I did.
As one chapter of Junior's life ended, another began. A new family and the birth of his son, Robert Glenn Johnson III.
I've been lucky. I got two of the best little kids that anybody can ever have. When I get up in the morning, I feel like it's a great day because we four are still together.
The birth of Robert led to a racing rebirth in Junior. Now, through his son, racing is once again the Johnson family business.
I just can't believe he's racing, to tell you the honest God truth. When he does good at it, I'm so happy. I never thought I would do that with my son. I don't want him to ever think that I'm not going to support him in everything he does.
He's got some great stories. I mean, he tells stories around the dinner table sometimes, and it's just fun to listen to what he says. When he was racing at Daytona, he used to tie himself in with a rope and wear loafers and hold himself in, putting his left foot behind the clutch, and he'd wear out the top of the loafers by the end of the race. It's just amazing how far it's come since then.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I've got a name, I've got a name. And I carry it with me like my daddy did, but I'm living the dream that he kept here. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by.
Junior Johnson's life is a ballad of the right man at the right time. A pioneer whose name defines one era as he reinvents himself to fit the next.
Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by.